St. Agnes Medical Center was a hulking relic, its sterile corridors bathed in the sickly glow of flickering fluorescence. For Clara, a fresh-faced nurse on her first night shift, it was supposed to be a straightforward gig. Monitor patients, administer meds, survive the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. slog. She'd heard the hospital had its quirks, but nothing prepared her for what lurked in the shadows of that first night. The shift began quietly. Clara's orientation with Marla, a veteran nurse with a 1,000-yard stare, was a blur of paperwork and cryptic advice. "Stay out of the old wing," Marla said, tossing Clara a clipboard. "It's been closed since the 90s. You'll hear things. Ignore them." Clara chalked it up to hazing, but the old wing's double doors, sealed with a rusted lock and a faded, authorized personnel only sign, gave her a strange chill. Peering through the grimy window, she saw only darkness and dust. The first few hours were mundane. Clara checked vitals, refilled water pitchers, and dodged Mr. Jenkins in room 312, who kept buzzing for attention. By 2 a.m., the hospital sank into an oppressive silence, broken only by the hum of machinery. Then she heard it, a faint tapping, like fingernails on glass coming from the old wing. It was rhythmic, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. She glanced at Tom, the other nurse on duty, who was glued to his phone. "You hear that?" she asked. Tom shrugged. "Pipes. Old building. You'll get used to it." But it didn't sound like pipes. It was too precise, too alive. Clara tried to focus on her charts, but the tapping grew louder, then stopped, replaced by a low hum that vibrated through the floor. It felt like the building was breathing. She grabbed a flashlight, curiosity overriding her nerves. "I'm checking the old wing," she told Tom. He looked up, uneasy. "Bad idea. They shut it down after some weird stuff in the 80s. Experiments, maybe. Patients disappeared, staff went nuts. Just don't." Clara brushed it off, but her pulse quickened as she approached the double doors. To her surprise, they creaked open easily, as if inviting her in. The air inside was cold, thick with mold and something metallic. Her flashlight revealed a long hallway, its walls peeling like burned skin, doors marked with strange, scratched symbols, spirals, crosses, jagged lines. The humming grew louder, splitting into whispers, too faint to decipher. She reached room 13 where the sound was strongest, a guttural chant that made her skin crawl. Pressing her ear to the door, she heard a clear whisper, "You shouldn't be here." Clara stumbled back, her flashlight shaking. The air grew heavier, pressing against her chest. She turned to leave, but the hallway seemed to stretch, the double doors now impossibly far. A new sound, a slow, deliberate creak, came from behind her. She spun around, her flashlight catching a figure at the hall's end. Tall, unnaturally thin, its head tilted at a sickening angle. It didn't move, but the whispers grew frantic. "Stay. See." Clara ran, her sneakers squeaking on the dusty floor, the figure's presence like a weight on her back. She burst through the doors and slammed them shut, her breath ragged. The whispers stopped, but the silence was worse, thick and suffocating. Back at the nurse's station, Tom barely looked up. "Told you," he muttered. "Whatever's in there, it doesn't like company." Clara tried to focus on her rounds, but the hospital felt different now, like it was watching her. In room 304, Mrs. Carter, an elderly patient with glassy eyes, grabbed her wrist. "You went in there," she hissed. "They know you now. They'll come for you." Clara yanked free, her heart pounding. "Who's they?" she asked, but Mrs. Carter turned to the wall, silent. Around 4 a.m., the power flickered, plunging the ward into darkness for a split second. When the lights returned, Clara noticed the call button for room 313 was lit, a room that was supposed to be empty. She checked the chart. No patient assigned. Against her better judgment, she went to investigate. The room was cold, the air heavy with that same metallic tang. The bed was empty, but the sheets were rumpled, as if someone had just been there. On the wall, fresh scratches formed a spiral, identical to those in the old wing. As she backed out, the call button buzzed again, though no one was there to press it. Back at the station, Clara's hands shook as she sipped coffee, trying to calm her nerves. The tapping started again, now coming from the ceiling above her. She looked up, and a faint shadow moved across the tiles, too large to be human. Tom didn't notice, but Clara's stomach churned. She checked the security monitors, hoping for reassurance, but one screen showed static, except for a brief flash of that same tilted-head figure standing in the old wing's hallway. At 5 a.m., a scream echoed from room 320. Clara and Tom rushed over to find a patient, Mr. Reyes, thrashing in his bed, his eyes wide with terror. "They're in the walls!" he shouted, clawing at his arms. "They're whispering my name!" Clara tried to calm him, but his skin was ice cold, and his nails left bloody streaks. As she sedated him, she swore she heard her own name whispered from the corner of the room, where the shadows seemed to pulse. The final hour was a nightmare. The tapping followed her everywhere, now joined by soft footsteps that stopped when she did. In the bathroom, the mirror reflected not just her face, but a faint, distorted version of it, smiling too widely. She blinked, and it was gone, but her reflection felt wrong, like it was watching her. When she returned to the station, her clipboard was open to a blank page with a single word scratched into it. Clara, at 7 a.m., and the day shift arrived, and Clara clocked out, her nerves in tatters. She didn't tell anyone what she'd seen, afraid they'd think she was crazy. Driving home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed her. Her rear-view mirror showed nothing, but the whispers lingered, faint and persistent. At her apartment, she locked the door and checked every room, finding nothing. But as she collapsed into bed, the tapping started again, coming from her closet. She didn't dare open it. That night, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Come back. We're waiting." She deleted it, but the whispers grew louder, now inside her head. In her dreams, the figure from the old wing stood at her bedside, its head tilting further until it snapped, its voice clear. "You belong to us now." Clara never returned to St. Agnes. She quit the next day, but the tapping followed her, faint but relentless, in every quiet moment. The hospital had let her go, but whatever lived in the old wing hadn't. It was patient. It was waiting. The hospital was quieter than usual that night. Nina had worked the night shift at St. Augustine Memorial for nearly 5 years, but something about this Tuesday was off. The halls, always dim but comforting, now felt oppressive. She glanced at the wall clock, 2:43 a.m., the hour when even time feels tired. Her shoes echoed down the corridor as she pushed her medication cart along the east wing. The patients on this floor were mostly stable. Post-op recoveries, minor illnesses, elderly cases. Nothing exciting, nothing dangerous, and yet her skin prickled beneath her scrubs. Nina paused at room 217. It wasn't on her list. Curious, she pulled up the chart on her tablet. Nothing. No name. No record. Frowning, she knocked gently. No response. "Maybe an error," she muttered, but still. She opened the door. The room was dark, curtains drawn, machines silent. But someone was there, sitting upright in the bed. "Sir?" she asked, stepping in. "Do you need anything?" The figure didn't answer. She reached for the light switch, but as soon as the bulb flickered on, the bed was empty. Her heart skipped. The sheets were perfectly folded, no dent in the pillow, no sign anyone had been there. Nina shut the light off and closed the door quickly. Probably overtired, she told herself. Her shift had started at 7 p.m. and she hadn't taken a break since midnight. Back at the nurse's station, she found Julie, the on-call physician assistant, sipping cold coffee and scrolling on her phone. "Julie," Nina said, "is anyone supposed to be in room 217? Julie glanced up. 217? She tapped the screen and frowned. "That room's closed. Under renovation after that ceiling leak last week." Nina stiffened. "There was someone in there. Like a patient? I swear I saw someone sitting in the bed. Then when I turned on the light, gone. Nothing. But I felt..." Julie held up her hand. "Don't. You'll freak me out too." "I'm serious." Julie rubbed her temples. "Maybe security left the door open. I'll put in a report." Nina didn't sleep the next morning. The next night, Nina returned for her shift and avoided the East Wing. She volunteered to cover pediatrics instead. Bright, colorful walls and the soft beeping of monitors made her feel human again. She made it to her 1 a.m. break without incident. Just as she was sipping her vending machine coffee, she heard the overhead chime. "Code Blue, East Wing, room 217. The cup slipped from her hand and splashed across her scrubs. Julie's voice came over the walkie. All available staff. 217 now. Nina ran, but when she reached 217, the door was closed, locked, no sound from inside. Julie was already there, holding a defibrillator. No one's in there, Nina said breathlessly. I know. But the call came from the nurse console. Someone triggered the code manually from inside. They looked at each other. Julie keyed in the override code and opened the door. Empty, again. No bed this time. No equipment, just bare walls and construction tarps. They both stood in the silence until Nina noticed something strange. There was a wet footprint on the tile floor. Just one. Leading away from the center of the room. Barefoot. Small. Almost child-sized. 2 days later, maintenance filed a complaint. The console in 217 was completely disconnected from the hospital's main system. No power, no data link. It couldn't have sent the code blue. Julie tried to laugh it off. Probably a prank. But Nina knew. And the worst part? That night, as she changed in the locker room, she found a note inside her shoe. I see you. No one had access to her locker. She checked the security cameras. No one had entered, not even her. She transferred to the day shift. 2 months passed. No incidents. Nina almost forgot about it until her final shift. She had been accepted at a new hospital across the state. On her last day, her manager asked her for a favor. Can you do one last night shift before you go? We're short 2 nurses. Nina hesitated, then nodded. Sure, one more night won't kill me. Midnight. She was making rounds again. The hospital had the same sterile smell. Same quiet hum of electricity. But this time she stayed on the south wing, far from 217. At 3 a.m. she noticed something strange on her patient list, a name she didn't recognize. Patient Eliza B. Room 217, status admitted, under observation. Her breath hitched. She checked the record. Somehow, the system now showed room 217 as fully operational. Heart pounding, she rushed to the east wing. The hallway was dark. Lights dimmed for the night. 217's door was wide open. This time, Nina didn't hesitate. She stepped inside. The room was clean, fresh bed linens, a single IV pole, and a little girl sitting on the edge of the bed, legs dangling. She looked about 8 years old, pale, eyes too wide. Nina swallowed. Eliza? The girl nodded. What are you doing here? Are your parents here? They left, she said, voice small. They always leave. Nina took a step closer. The air in the room was colder than the hall. You're not supposed to be here, she whispered. I've always been here, Eliza replied. You saw me before. Nina shook her head. No, that wasn't you. The girl tilted her head. You opened the door. That's all I needed. Suddenly, the room's temperature dropped. The light above them flickered and went out. When Nina turned back toward the door, it was closed. Eliza was no longer on the bed. She was right behind her. I waited so long, the child whispered, her voice now deeper. Wrong. Nina screamed and backed away, knocking over the IV pole. The girl stepped forward, but her feet left no sound, no weight. Her face began to change. Her eyes darkened, skin sagged, lips stretched impossibly wide. I waited, she repeated. Now it's your turn. The world turned black. They found Nina unconscious the next morning in the east wing hallway. Room 217 was sealed, exactly as it had been for months. No bed, no lights, no sign of activity. The nurses assumed she fainted from stress, but Julie knew better. Nina left town the next day and never returned. A year later, St. Augustine Memorial was shut down after several unexplained patient disappearances. One of the last nurses to work the night shift claimed she saw a little girl in a gown asking for her mother, and then disappearing through the wall. They say the hospital is abandoned now, but sometimes lights still flicker on in room 217. And if you listen closely, you might hear a child's voice whisper, "It's your turn." Night shifts at St. Alora's Hospital were never quiet, but they were predictable. Nurse Danny Reyes had worked here for 5 years, and she'd grown used to the hum of fluorescent lights, the rustle of bedsheets, and the occasional distant scream from the psych ward. But tonight felt wrong the moment she stepped into the ER. The clock read 11:56 p.m. The air was thick with the antiseptic stench of bleach, but there was something else. A faint metallic scent that lingered just under it. Blood? Maybe. It wasn't uncommon here. Still, her instincts prickled. "Hey, Danny," called out Jamie, the ER receptionist, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "You're early." "Figured I'd beat the storm," Danny replied, gesturing toward the dark windows. Thunder cracked in the distance like an omen. "Any trauma cases?" "Just the usual. 1 drunk guy, 2 broken wrists from a bar fight, and—" Jamie hesitated. looking at the monitor as if it could answer for her. Room 109, walk-in, no ID, just appeared around 10:30, quiet, unconscious, no injuries we can find. Danny frowned. Unconscious but no trauma? Vitals are weird. Temp fluctuates, low heart rate, and he won't wake up. No name? Jamie shrugged. The admitting nurse said he whispered something, but she couldn't understand. Sounded like another language. Danny was halfway down the hall before she realized she was holding her breath. Room 109 had always been the odd one. It was originally a storage room converted hastily into a patient room years ago. No windows, dim lights, a single creaky hospital bed. When she entered, the overhead bulb buzzed weakly. The patient lay perfectly still, face obscured by shadows. Tall, pale, lean. His skin had an unnatural sheen, almost like wax. Danny stepped closer, clipboard in hand, and the lights flickered. His eyes shot open. They were pitch black. No whites, no irises, just void. Danny staggered back, heart hammering. The man didn't move otherwise. No blink, no expression. She fumbled for the call button. Dr. Chandra to 109 stat. No response. The intercom crackled. Static. The man sat up slowly, as if gravity resisted him. Then he spoke. "You let me in." The words were soft, like breathless wind across a tombstone. Danny stumbled into the hall. It was suddenly silent. The usual beeping monitors, overhead paging, distant chatter, they were gone. The air felt dead. She ran back to the nurse's station. Jamie was gone. Her chair spun lazily in place, papers scattered on the floor. A half-full coffee cup leaked onto the keyboard. Danny picked up the phone. Dead. Her cell? No service. She wasn't alone. Down the hall, the lights began to shut off one by one. Click, click, click. Something heavy scraped the floor from room 109. She turned and ran. Her footsteps echoed unnaturally loud. The hospital morphed around her. The walls longer, the doors darker, the exit signs flickering dimly before winking out altogether. At the far end of the hallway, a silhouette blocked the corridor. Tall, motionless, watching. Then it moved. Not with footsteps, but gliding, like smoke wrapped in flesh. Danny dove into the nearest room. Pediatrics. Empty cribs. Still toys. Silent lullabies playing faintly from an old speaker. She barricaded the door with a wheeled stretcher and backed away, trying to breathe. Then tap, tap, tap from the windowless wall, as if fingernails scratched from inside the wall. She turned on her flashlight. The paint bubbled. Cracks formed like veins. A child's voice whispered, "He's not a man. He's wearing skin." The walls began to bleed. Danny screamed and fled. Back in the hallway, the hospital was wrong. Signs pointed nowhere. Doors led to supply closets filled with rows of staring mannequins dressed as doctors. One turned its head toward her. She kept running, tears streaming until she reached the morgue. It was the only door that felt real. Inside, it was freezing. The chill cut to the bone. She flipped on the overhead light. Rows of steel drawers lined the walls. In the center of the room, Dr. Chandra stood, her back turned. "Doctor," Danny croaked. Chandra turned slowly, scalpel in hand, eyes vacant. Her mouth opened, and Danny expected words, but instead, black smoke poured out. It twisted in the air, taking shape. A face without features, hands that clawed at light, a body that defied physics. It hissed, "You let me in, now I will wear you." Danny grabbed the nearest tray and threw it. Chandra's body crumpled, smoke dispersing into the cold. She bolted. Stumbling through the maze the hospital had become, she finally found the main entrance, but the doors were gone. In their place was a blackened wall covered in handprints, some bloody, some moving. Her mind began to unravel. The walls whispered now. "We see you. We wore others. You will last longer." She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Then a blinding light. A defibrillator's pads pressed against her chest. A voice. "Clear!" Her body jolted. She gasped, eyes flying open. She was in a hospital bed, surrounded by people, real ones. Dr. Chandra, Jamie, 2 security guards. The ER's regular chaos buzzed in the background. What happened?" she croaked. "You fainted," Jamie said gently. "We found you on the floor outside 109. You were seizing." Danny sat up fast. "Room 109! The man! He's not human!" Dr. Chandra frowned. "Room 109 is empty. It's been under maintenance for weeks." Danny's mouth opened, but no words came. "We checked," Chandra added. "There was no patient. You must have had a dissociative episode. Extreme exhaustion. You've been working too many back-to-backs. But Danny knew what she saw, what she heard. The black eyes, the words, the whispers. They let her go home, insisted on medical leave. She didn't argue. That night, in her apartment, she stared at herself in the bathroom mirror. The lights flickered just slightly. She leaned in, touched her cheek, cold. Then, her reflection smiled. She didn't. You let me in. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow across the linoleum floors of St. Agnes Hospital. It was 11:47 p.m. and the night shift was just settling in. Nurse Emily Carter adjusted her scrubs, her sneakers squeaking faintly as she walked the deserted third-floor corridor. The hospital was old, its walls stained with decades of wear, and the air carried a faint metallic tang that never quite went away. Emily had been working at St. Agnes for 3 months, but the night shifts still unnerved her. Something about the way the building seemed to breathe at night, the creaks and groans of its aging structure, made her skin prickle. She glanced at her clipboard. 6 patients to check on this hour, all stable, mostly elderly folks recovering from routine surgeries. The third floor was quiet tonight, save for the occasional beep of a heart monitor or the soft hum of the HVAC system. Her only company was Dr. Raymond Holt, the on-call physician, who was probably napping in the break room, and Clara, the other nurse on duty, who was stationed at the nurse's desk, engrossed in her phone. Emily's first stop was room 312, where Mrs. Evelyn Harper, a 78-year-old recovering from hip surgery, was sleeping soundly. The old woman's chest rose and fell rhythmically, her face peaceful under the dim glow of the bedside lamp. Emily checked the IV drip, adjusted the blanket, and marked her chart. As she turned to leave, a faint whisper stopped her cold. "Help. Me." The voice was barely audible, raspy, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. Emily spun around, her heart lurching. Mrs. Harper's eyes were closed, her breathing unchanged. The room was empty. Emily's pulse quickened. She scanned the shadows, the corners where the light didn't quite reach. Nothing, just the steady beep of the monitor. She shook her head, chalking it up to exhaustion. Night shifts played tricks on the mind. The next room, 314, housed Mr. Gerald Klein, a gruff 65-year-old with a recent knee replacement. He was awake, propped up in bed, staring at the muted TV flickering with some late-night infomercial. "Evening, Mr. Klein," Emily said, forcing a smile. "How's the pain?" "Same as always," he muttered, not taking his eyes off the screen. "This place gives me the creeps at night." Emily nodded, checking his chart. "You're not the only one. Try to get some rest." She adjusted his medication drip and stepped back into the hall, the whisper from room 312 still lingering in her mind. As she moved to the next room, the lights flickered just for a second. The hum of the fluorescents stuttered, and the corridor seemed to darken, the shadows stretching longer than they should. Emily froze, her breath catching. The light steadied, but the air felt heavier now, like a storm was brewing inside the walls. She glanced back toward the nurse's station, but Clara was out of sight, probably grabbing coffee. Room 316 was empty, or it was supposed to be. The patient, a John Doe admitted 2 days ago after a car accident, had passed away that morning. The bed was stripped, the room sterile and silent. Yet as Emily stepped inside to double-check the inventory, she felt a chill, like someone had left a window open. She checked. No windows. The hospital hadn't had functioning windows on this floor since the 80s. She shivered, her breath visible in the air for a fleeting moment. That wasn't right. The thermostat was set to 72 degrees. She hurried out, her sneakers squeaking louder now, echoing in the quiet. The clipboard trembled slightly in her hands. "Get it together, Emily," she muttered, heading to room 318. But as she passed the stairwell door, she heard it again. A whisper, clearer this time. "Stay away." She whipped around, her flashlight beam cutting through the dimness. The stairwell door was closed, its small window dark. No one was there. Her heart pounded, a cold sweat breaking out on her forehead. She backed away, her eyes locked on the door, half expecting it to swing open. It didn't. At the nurse's station, Clara was back, scrolling through her phone. "You okay?" she asked without looking up. "You look like you saw a ghost." Emily forced a laugh, but it came out shaky. "Just tired. You hear anything weird tonight? Clara shrugged. Just the usual. This place is old as dirt, always creaking. She glanced up, her eyes narrowing. Why? You hear something? Emily hesitated. Maybe. Just whispers. Probably nothing. Clara's expression didn't change, but she set her phone down. This floor's always been weird. They say it used to be the psych ward back in the day. Locked patients in those rooms, did all kinds of messed up stuff. Electroshock, lobotomies, you name it. Emily's stomach twisted. Great. Thanks for that. Clara smirked. Just saying, night shift's not for everyone. Emily pushed the thought away and continued her rounds. Room 318 was Mr. Thomas Reed, recovering from a gallbladder removal. He was asleep, snoring softly. Room 320 was Mrs. Lillian Carter, no relation, who was awake and chatty, complaining about the hospital food. Emily smiled through the conversation, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the whispers, the cold in room 316. By 1:13 a.m., she was on her final patient, Mr. Henry Walsh, in room 322. He was a quiet man, mid-80s, admitted for pneumonia. His chart noted he was stable, but frail. As Emily entered, she found him sitting up in bed, staring at the wall. His eyes were wide, unblinking, like he was seeing something she couldn't. "Mr. Walsh," she said softly. "You okay?" He didn't respond at first. Then, slowly, he turned his head, his gaze locking onto hers. "They're here," he whispered, his voice trembling. "They never left." Emily's skin prickled. "Who's here, Mr. Walsh?" He pointed a bony finger toward the corner of the room, where the shadows pooled. "The ones they hurt. The ones they locked away." Her mouth went dry. She followed his gaze, but the corner was empty. Just shadows. "It's okay, Mr. Walsh," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Let's get you settled." She adjusted his oxygen tube, her hands shaking slightly, and gave him a sedative to help him sleep. As she left the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her from that corner. Back at the nurse's station, Clara was gone again, probably on a bathroom break. Emily sat down, her nerves frayed. The clock read 1:47 a.m. 5 more hours until the morning shift. She tried to focus on her paperwork, but the hospital felt alive tonight, its walls whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. Then the lights flickered again, this time longer, plunging the corridor into darkness for a full 3 seconds. When they came back on, Emily's breath caught. At the end of the hall, near the stairwell, stood a figure. It was tall, too tall, its silhouette blurred like a smudge on glass. It didn't move, just stood there, its head tilted slightly as if watching her. Emily blinked, and it was gone. Her heart hammered. She grabbed the phone, dialing Dr. Holt's pager, but the line was dead. Not static, just silence. She tried the radio next, but it hissed with white noise. "Clara?" she called, her voice echoing. No answer. She stood, her legs unsteady, and walked toward the stairwell. She had to check, had to know it was just her imagination. The corridor seemed to stretch, the walls closing in. The air grew colder with every step. When she reached the stairwell door, she hesitated, her hand hovering over the handle. The small window was dark, but she swore she saw movement, something shifting just beyond the glass. She pushed the door open. The stairwell was pitch black, the emergency lights off. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing concrete steps spiraling down. "Clara!" she called again, her voice swallowed by the void. A sound answered, a low, guttural moan, like someone in pain. It came from below, deep in the stairwell. Emily's instincts screamed at her to run, but her training kicked in. What if Clara was hurt? What if a patient had wandered down here? She descended, her flashlight shaking in her grip. The air grew colder, heavier, the metallic tang stronger now, almost choking. The moan came again, louder, joined by a faint scratching, like nails on concrete. Her beam caught something on the wall, a smear of red, fresh and glistening. Blood. Emily's breath hitched. She backed up a step, her sneaker slipping on the edge. The moan turned into a scream, sharp and inhuman, echoing up the stairwell. She turned to run, but the door above slammed shut with a deafening clang. Her flashlight flickered, then died. plunging her into darkness. She fumbled for the door, her hands slick with sweat, but it wouldn't budge. The screaming grew closer, joined by whispers. Dozens of them, overlapping, pleading, accusing. Help us. Stay away. You did this. I didn't do anything, Emily shouted, pounding on the door. Her voice broke, tears streaming down her face. The air was freezing now, her breath visible in the dark. Something brushed against her back, cold and clammy like a hand. She screamed, spinning around, but there was nothing there. The lights flickered back on, blinding her. She was back in the third-floor corridor, the stairwell door behind her. Her flashlight was in her hand, still on. The clipboard lay at her feet, pages scattered. Her chest heaved, her body trembling. The corridor was silent, the whispers gone. Emily? Clara's voice came from the nurse's station. Where the hell were you? I've been calling you for 10 minutes. Emily stumbled toward her, her legs weak. The stairwell... Something was down there. Clara frowned, glancing at the stairwell door. You okay? You're white as a sheet. Emily didn't answer. She grabbed her things and left, ignoring Clara's protests. She didn't care about protocol or finishing her shift. She quit the next day, never setting foot in St. Agnes again. Years later, she heard the hospital had been demolished. Thank you for listening. Hope I didn't scare you too much. If you like my stories, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. See you next time.